Hello and welcome to One United. I am Paritosh Joshi along with Anshuman Joshi and Wali Siddiqui. Once again, live with you all. And we are talking about Manchester United. The next match, game week 2, we will be facing Brighton at their home ground. And things can change a bit for United. We can finally open our account in the league. And that should be the whole narrative of today's episode of podcast or whatever video we're doing. Right now, the whole situation is that no new signings have been made after Van de Beek. We're still hopeful. Wali, are you still hopeful? Because I'm surely not.
Hopeful of beating Brighton or
Both
something else.
of
Okay.
beating Brighton, or and of making signings.
I think we should be able to beat Brighton. Let's be honest, we should have beaten Crystal Palace as well.
We, yes,
And
exactly.
yeah, so yeah, you could say that, but I think we should be beating them considering the quality that we have. And it's going to be a big game because if you lose another game, even though there are plenty of talks about having a pathetic transfer window, even though we still have a week remaining, this shouldn't have been done this way. We should have been more. We should have been proactive in the transfer market. But like I said, if we lose tomorrow, then the blame will go on Oli, and the Oli out brigade will be back at it again. They will have the same reason, stating that even if we had a few other players, maybe it wouldn't have made a difference. Which, to an extent, is right because if I think Jadon Sancho was there in that game against Crystal Palace, I don't think he could have offered much because we didn't create much. So Oregon Solskjaer, it's an important game for him. He needs to win, and not just in a way in which he scrapes out a win. I think he needs a clean sheet, and he needs some of his top players to fire because it was a poor display on in the previous weekend. And as for the transfer market, I think we might be able to make a signing. I hope it's the big one which we were talking about, Jadon Sancho. I hope we complete that. But yeah, we're gonna find out within a week. It's just a few days.
Yeah, it's just a few days. Tellez has also been in the news for this whole transfer saga about the transfer fees not being agreed. He's pushing the club though, so we can see him as the signing that we were hoping for prior to Jadon Sancho. Uh, Coming to Anshuman,
One thing,
Anshuman, what are you? Okay,
one thing I
okay, speak.
like to add. One thing I'd like to add is remember it was in the last podcast that you reminded. You told us that Alex Tellez has agreed to move to Manchester United. Personal terms are agreed, and here we are again. Even though the personal terms are agreed, we haven't completed the move. And let me remind you, he's just 20 million. That's it, and
Yep,
we still haven't seen the
he's
deal.
20 to 25. So that is the
Yeah.
whole situation. We are looking for some millions to be saved. So let's see how it goes. Anshuman, coming to you, what are your thoughts about the whole transfer situation that Manchester United are having right now, and also a little context about the Brighton game, if you can?
Well, as far the Tellez deal is considered, I'm really not sure what United are trying to go for because the current situation is that Porto uh, has put an evaluation of 18.3 million pounds on Alex Tellez, and United are ready to pay 12 million. And there is this difference of 6 million that United are not willing to pay. And honestly, I really don't know what to make of this because he is one of the finest left backs in Europe. He's 27 years old in the prime of his past, and like the only difference between Sancho and Tellez transfer saga, despite the massive difference in the transfer wages, is that he's already pushing for the move. He has told his agent, and he's subsequently telling the club to make this transfer happen to meet United halfway. And he's pushing for the move. He wants to come. The personal terms have already been agreed, and I just don't understand. Like 18 million pounds, even in this market, like this is what Chelsea paid for Emerson 2.5 years ago, and I don't even realize that Emerson has been there for 2.5 years. That's how short that transfer has been, and the fact that is that is the transfer that Porto is going for, like 18 million price. It should be a no-brainer for a player who will be giving the best years of his for the next 4 and 5 years for us, and a player who wants to come and just does not make any sense to me. Like 18 million pounds. Like I could not even make any sense of the fact why they were not ready to pay 120 for Sancho, and now they are being reluctant to pay even 18. And the more the transfer window comes to a close, the more worry I get that I just don't understand what the transfer dealings are happening. I think that video that Patrice Evra made last week, where he came out and talked about the way things are happening, because he's doing his training of his management training from Manchester United, so he knows a bit of bit what's going behind after Sir Alex has left. And he brought up a very interesting points. Like there are, like he basically told us exactly what we already knew in a way, that not many people are making the footballing decisions at the club at the higher level. And he even mentioned that one like while the United try to contact the player to make those signings, they don't really send any footballing players. They don't really send. They
Yeah.
don't have any footballing players to
They are
send, because they don't have any sporting
they are
directors.
sending lawyers. They are sending lawyers to
Yeah, they're
talk to
sending
players.
lawyers. He said they're sending lawyers to figure that thing out, and that is worrying, because not only you don't have any footballing people to make the recruitment for you, you don't even have any footballing people to make those decisions while signing those players. So like the whole thing feels so shambolic right now, and like who do you blame? Like this is pretty much the same thing that we have been hearing for the past 7 years, and the more this goes on year after year, the more it feels that Sir Alex's final years, final 6, 7 years under the Glazers regime were basically papering over the cracks, because what he and David Gill used to do is they used to directly contact any player that they wanted to sign, and they would sell the United dream to them. And United used to come up
I
as one of the best players.
I remember once there was this interview. Once Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was declared as the manager, he gave an interview in which he told that when he was signed, Alex Ferguson himself came down, received him, and they went to a restaurant near Manchester and they ate fish and chips and they talked. And that's how you convince players. That's how Manchester United convinced players to join them, because Alex Ferguson, as a persona, he used to do the talking. And same goes for many other clubs. I think for say Ajax, if they want to sign a player, if they want to make a move happen in Netherlands, I'm sure the Van der Sar must himself be involved. He must be making the calls and he must be calling the shots. And that's how it's supposed to happen. But the thing with Manchester United, and it's saddening, the thought that if you are a young player or anybody who wishes to play for Manchester United one day, and they are working really hard, they are top of the league in Portugal or in Netherlands, wherever they are scoring, and they are even connected to the club, and they are realizing this dream, and then you are being contacted by lawyers who are doing the numbers game with you, who are not talking to you about football, who are not talking to you about Champions League glory, who are not talking to you about the history of the club, what you want to achieve as a player. These are not the conversations that are happening. The conversations that are happening are, okay, this much salary, this much match bonus, this much goal bonus will give you. This is the conversation you're having with a player who is wanting to play for one of the biggest and best clubs in the world, and they are not coming from the mentality that they want this much money. Yes, money is a big factor in football, obviously, but he's a top player. He's already about to earn a lot of money. Money shouldn't be on his mind while coming to a big club. Money shouldn't be a factor coming to somewhere like Real Madrid. If somebody comes to Real Madrid, he must be focusing on Champions League, winning the Champions League and winning the La Liga. If they come to Barcelona, they must be dreaming about playing with Messi, scoring goals and winning the championships. That must be the conversation, not the money. Right when the players are about to get signed, and I think this has been a big factor in Bain coming back to Tottenham and not coming to Manchester United. United could have capitalized on that. Region also choosing Tottenham, that must have been a conversation, because Jose Mourinho is a very shrewd person. He knew what Manchester United are doing, and he was able to capitalize. He hacked the transfer midway. So this is how things are done. If you are not able to manipulate players, manipulate. I'm not using this word in a negative sense. If you are not able to say motivate
Sell
them
them
to
the
join your club, yes, sell them the dream basically, or about Manchester United and the community as a whole. You are failing as a club and as an institution. This should have been exposed way earlier. Evra has told us this, but this again spirals down into a very negative kind of conversation, and I don't want to focus on that. Let's talk about the Brighton game, because transfer market, we have already talked about this a million times, and I don't think that conversation bears any fruit as of now. We'll talk about the game against Brighton a little bit though. Brighton have won three of their last four league games, home league games against Manchester United, and they lost this exact fixture 3-0 in the last season. So this
Yep.
is a very interesting fact that I have. And Brighton, the see the league is known for these kind of fixtures, because these teams you don't expect them to beat the top teams, but eventually you see the top six losing to teams like these, because only one, Liverpool, was able to maintain a record, and they also lost in the later half of the season. But only one club was able to maintain a record, which was like, okay, they're not losing. Even Man City lost many games, and that was the reason why they were not able to hold the league. So, what should be the strategy against Brighton, against a team like Brighton, who will definitely want Manchester United to come at them, not want them to go for the counter? They will go for the counter, and Manchester United are not able to break teams as a whole,
Right.
as far as we've seen. Wali, first we'll start with you.
Well, the last time we were there, it was one of our finest wins in the Premier League because that was one confident display by Manchester United, the way we won that game. From the first minute to the 67th minute, I guess, because that was our strongest 11 that was playing until that moment, and then there were some changes, and then Brighton were trying to claw their way back in. But the thing is, the way that we started in that game was that it was high intensity, and we were pushing them at the back. And I did not expect Brighton to be pressurized at that moment because they were fresh of an impressive win against Arsenal, if you all remember. So I thought it might have been much more of a challenge, but the way that we started off, the tenacity was there. Luke Shaw was making some wondrous runs off the flanks. Aaron Wan-Bissaka did quite well. Paul Pogba and Bruno Fernandes were in sync. So basically, our best is when we push the team towards the back, and there is movement happening across the pitch when the ball isn't being passed until the final moment. That is exactly what we were lacking in the last game. We were quite lackluster, and each almost every player was taking 2 to 3 touches before making the final decision of where to pass the ball. There wasn't much of a movement from either flank, and immediately after Donny van de Beek came in, there was a little bit of sharpness and link up plays. Even in the last game against Luton Town, we saw that Donny van de Beek has that capability, and there was some impressive link ups with him and Mata. Like, irrespective of what we say about Juan Mata, he is still sharp when it comes to passes, though he might have lost his pace and all that. But I think we might get to see Donny van de Beek. We might be up for a surprise. I think he might start in place of Paul Pogba, considering that he had a poor outing. In fact, it was a poor game at Old Trafford for him. So I think he might start. He did well in the last game as well. And what will be interesting to see is if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer persists with either Lindelof or I think Maguire is going to stay. We all know that Maguire is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's favorite. So it's going to be either Lindelof or Bailly, and that is something which I'm eagerly waiting for. What decision is going to make? And like I said, in order to win, we have to be like on our toes, high energy, high intensity, push them towards the back, movements off the ball, and I think we might be able to register a comfortable win if we implement that with proper ease.
Yeah, Anshuman, talking about Manchester United, what do you think should be the strategy or the formation with which Oli would go against Brighton?
I think the thing about Brighton under Graham Potter is that Graham Potter insists to play with a very creative attacking style of play. And that was the reason he was brought in after Chris Hughton, because Brighton did not want to play this super defensive style of football even against the top teams. And for better or worse, that helped them staying in the league last season. And they are trying to build on it this season onwards. They have brought in some players. And there are players that were already there: Leandro Trossard, Neil Mope, and Aaron Conley. They have been on form. They had a very good match against Newcastle last week. And the thing that plays into United's hands here is that they insist on playing that attacking style of football even with the top teams, and that's something that works for us in our tactics, because we like to play on the attack. We like to play on the counter attack, and that's what happened with us last season as well. Because despite being the relatively lesser team, they kept attacking us, and we were able to find the spaces to run into, and our attackers were able to capitalize on it. We already know that we have ample pace to scare any team in the league for that matter. And I think that very insistence that despite being a big challenge for Brighton, they try to come out on the attack and they try to play this free flowing style of football. I think that is something that we should be able to capitalize from the get go. I think if we can go on and get the first goal, I think it'll be an easy sailing for us. I hope it'll be an easy sailing for us. Although nothing really makes surprises me anymore with our team. And as far as our defense is concerned, I think Oli was bigging up Eric Bailly in the midweek, I think he was saying that if he can stay injury free, he'll be a better option. And so that gives us an indication that he doesn't really trust Lindelof either. So I think if Bai stays fit, he has shown some great moments ever since he came back in 2016. I think he is a very apt defender, but he has had his issues with injuries. So I think as long as he's fit, I think we should be seeing him on the field more often than Lindelof. And if we talk about the Luton game in the midweek, I think that game left me more worried than relieved, because we played our second team and we really did not have a good time. I mean, there were two good performances that I noticed. I think Dean Henderson played a very confident, no nonsense game, and he looks set to challenge De Gea for that number one position. So, if anything, I am really happy with the goalkeeper seeing right now. I think that should incentivize De Gea to make lesser and lesser mistakes. And if he does make a mistake, I think he has a goalkeeper that is more than happy to challenge him and take that spot off him. And I think Fred had a good game in the midweek. He was playing that box to box midfield role very nicely.
Right.
He was making interceptions. He was running into the box. He was coming back on defense. I think he had a nice match. Juan Mata, I think ever since he has come, he has given us the 7 on 10 consistent performances. I have never really been able to understand why every manager that we have had has insisted to play him on the right hand side. He never really had that pace to begin with, and for Chelsea he played in that number 10 role in where he had his best season. And even when you see him playing on the right for us over the seasons, you would notice that he always drifts into the number 10 role in the in the center of the midfield, and he tries to return to that position uh, again and again. That's just like his instinctive position, and we don't really play him. We try to play him on the right hand side, which is fine, I guess. But I think he had a good game. He gave us the penalty, but we did not have a good time dealing with the Luton defense. I think Luton came back at us even in the second half. They tried to make those attacks, and the worrying part is they were able to make that because Dean Henderson had some couple of great saves, and he saved our bacon there. And it wasn't until the very towards the very end of the game that Oli had those triple substitution of Bruno, Rashford, and Greenwood, and we had two quick goals on the counter attack. Well taken goals, but we had to send in the big guns, our biggest guns, I might add, to like seal off the game. So I think the 3-0 scoreline was very flattering in the moment, and the fact that the penalty was the only difference we had over a championship team that will be trying to survive in the second tier once again this season. I think that was a bit worrying for me. Fine, we haven't had any pre-season, so I think we'll see where it goes. But I think given Brighton's tactics, that plays into our hands, and given the fact that we have already taken a beating in the first day of the season, I think United will be a bit more incentivized to play better this week. I think I'm going to be passively optimistic and expect a 2-1 victory. I still think that we have issues with our defenses, so maybe there can be a late goal. But I think we should have enough in the tank to beat Brighton tomorrow.
Okay, so the word is clear from Wali and Anshuman that we are going to beat Brighton. We'll be having our first points of this particular campaign. But I want to just conclude it with one interesting ending that should Van de Beek and Dean Henderson start for Manchester United? Now, hear me out. De Gea has been complacent time and again, and that is partly because here there has been a lack of competition for him at the club. Now, Dean
Right.
Henderson is coming in, and he's already on the back of a fantastic season, and he is challenging. He is saying that I want to play for this club, and he has the capabilities. So if De Gea doesn't perform, he is bound to get dropped. Should Oli just try Henderson in a league game match, especially with a team against Brighton, where they can afford to bring in Henderson and just try for one match? And that is one aspect that I want to talk about, because that will also give uh, maybe some fire in the fire under the belly that De Gea really requires, because that has been lacking from De Gea's game for a while now. Also, if Van de Beek starts, and Ole is known to start Bruno Fernandes as well in league games. Uh, so how will that pan out? Especially with as we've seen, if we are playing against dogged teams like Brighton, Fred is very useful and crucial to us. Fred is a player who plays high intensity, who will pressurize the other players, and who will get you in spaces where you can create goals. He's a very underrated player, I think, and his role is not very much seen, especially against the top six sides, because then the attacking football and the free flowing football come to the fore. where when we talk about the last 8 teams, when we say who are looking for 1 point or who are looking to capitalize on situations, Fred comes in very handy because he'll manage two players for you at a time. He'll hold on to the ball. His retention is good. He is a power player who will force other players to just create spaces while he is on the move. He'll not stop easily. So if we bring in Fred, we, that hasn't been seen right now. And if Van de Beek has to start, how will that pan out if Bruno will start? Because as far as I know, Bruno will start, and if Van de Beek has to start, how will the midfield look like?
If Bruno and let's say, yeah, Bruno is going to start tomorrow, and apart from Bruno, I think it's going to be Van de Beek or Pogba, and I have this gut feeling that Van de Beek will start. But the third midfielder who will be there, who should be there, is Nemanja Matic, because we dearly missed him in the first game. And when Nemanja Matic is there, our defense is much more calmer, and that calming presence is, like I said in the previous podcast as well, is much necessary at this moment of time because we do not have a centre back who can command the game at the moment. So we need a defensive midfielder who's experienced enough to handle such pressure from the opposition. So yes, and Fred, you did talk about him, quite an underrated player, and he was on par of becoming the player of the season in the last
Before
campaign at
Bruno
one
arrived,
stage.
before
Exactly,
Bruno arrived.
because the thing what he does really well is that he breaks the lines. He breaks the lines quite well.
Mm.
He'll get you one of those passes because of which you'll be able to create a chance. And like I said, his tackling is quite good. The only thing which he's quite horrendous at the moment is his shooting. If he's half
It's
decent
not
at
about
that,
the
even
shoot. I don't think it's about the shooting. It's about the X factor that any top team needs in a attacking midfielder or a midfielder in general. Every good team, if we look even Manchester United, the midfielders that we had, they had this X factor of creating something out of nothing. Every good midfielder
right.
has it. So I think that is one thing that Fred lacks, is that he's not able to create that special kind of feeling amongst the fans. But he does his job properly. If he's assigned a role, he'll do it properly. I think that is one thing that Fred lacks, and it's just sad that he might not be able to play for United regularly.
I Yeah, that is exactly something which is sad. But I really hope that we get to see a whole lot of Fred because he is a quality player. And as for Dean Henderson, one thing is quite strange over here because I know, yeah, I might deviate once again from the topic over here and talk about the board, but you just gave David De Gea this huge bumper contract the previous season. He became the highest earning goalkeeper, and he does a few mistakes. And then after that, you bring in Dean Henderson. All right. Before that, before Dean Henderson, you apparently had the world's best backup goalkeeper in the sense of Sergio Romero.
Sergio Romero. Yep.
Why didn't you use him enough? Now you've got in
Mm.
Dean Henderson, who is being touted as the best goalkeeper in England. All right.
Mm.
So basically, you're waiting for one of those goalkeepers to fail. It's either David De Gea or it's either Dean Henderson, both of whom are quality. Sergio Romero, forget about him. He's not going to get his opportunities now. So
I think he's
why
gonna
in
get
the
sold.
so why in
I
the
think he's
first
getting
place
sold.
did you so why in the first place did you give David De Gea that contract? Who do you think
Mm.
will be able to afford his wages from now on? Because I don't think we might be able to sell him. We might have another Sanchez situation over here where we might give him out on loan and we will be paying for his wages. So it's quite strange once again, and it's really silly because right now, no disrespects to Luke Shaw, but he's the highest earning left back in the world, highest earning left back in the world, more than Marcelo. We have Brandon Williams, who earns more than Trent Alexander-Arnold at the moment. And as you can hear in today's podcast, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was quite pissed about that. He mentioned that I'm not here to make players happy. That's
People
up to
happy.
them. Yeah, so that's up to them. That's because our board, our Edward Wood, Matt Judge, they haven't been forget about buying players. We haven't been able to sell players. That was the bare minimum. We could have at least done that. And they're still over here. You have Phil Jones, who hasn't featured in a match for I don't know when, and he's still earning money on a weekly basis. So this is something which we need to sort out. And like I said, David De Gea and Dean Henderson, it's a dodgy situation. I honestly do not know how it's going to end over here, but I think we're going to stick with David De Gea for tomorrow and quite a few matches in the Premier League. I feel.
Okay, so Anshuman, I'd like to conclude this quickly. So I want to know your thoughts about the whole how will De Beek fit into the 11, and whether Dean Henderson should be brought in for a game, or we should stick with David De Gea for a while.
I think Matic played last season in this fixture, and he played a brilliant match because I think he already cancelled out the pace that we were offering, and Brighton was already continuously on the attack, so he was just able to stick on the position, make interceptions, and spray out the passes. So I think in that regard, I think he will do a good job. I think that Fred can make into the starting 11, but I think that given that we have options in Van de Beek and Matic, I don't really think that we'll be seeing him in the starting 11 tomorrow. I think he's a brilliant option. I think he'll be having his chances throughout the season because it's a long season. We'll be moving into the group stages of Champions League soon. We'll be having the Carabao Cup fixtures. We have continuously midweek matches. So I think he'll be featuring very regularly. As far as can Van de Beek make the starting 11 with Bruno and Pogba, I think he can. I think I mentioned in my first feature that he has played as a single CDM as well. He has even played in the centre back. So his defensive nous is there, but I think he can play in a defensive pivot, the double pivot with Pogba. Uh, I I wouldn't want him to play that behind in the midfield, but I think he can. So if Oli has to shoehorn those three players in, I think it's completely possible. Will it happen? I'm not really sure. I think he'll be trying to gradually bring him into the team, and he'll still want to trust the players that he had last season. So I think Donny van de Beek can be making some off the bench appearances in the beginning, at least this month and the next one. And as far as the Dean and De Gea situation goes, I don't think that this is the first time David De Gea has been in a situation where he has to really rigorously contend for the first spot. I think when we go back to the time in 2011 when Desar left, there was this power vacuum that we have had with goalkeepers in United. Like when Peter Schmeichel left, there was this time where we did not have a first choice goalkeeper. Then when Van der Sar left, this was same issue. And back in 2012, around that time, David De Gea was not really the best player in the league. He was joked about how many times he just tried to use his leg instead of his hand. And at the time, the player that was contending for the number one spot with him was Anders Lindegaard. Uh, he has been in this situation before where he's not the out and out number one option as a goalkeeper. So I don't really think it will be that simple for Oli. I don't really think he'll be waiting for David De Gea to make a mistake. So then he can just say, look, you have made a mistake now. That's it. That's your gone. That's your season is over. And I think Andy Brassel mentioned this on the Football Ramble a couple of days ago that when we saw Sergio Romero play in goalkeeper, we always used to think, oh, he's just there to deputize for the De Gea. He will not really be contending for the number one spot. That's what we felt. Now, every time Dean Henderson is going to make a feature in goal, every single time you're going to put more impetus on him. Every single time you're going to focus more on him and look at his performances and say, look, he's going to try and challenge for the number one spot because that's what he's gunning for. And that is the thing that was there for everyone to see in the midweek match as well. So I think it's not going to be a position where David De Gea is the number one player anymore. I think we can see them both featuring sporadically throughout the season. I think they will be regularly rotated. I don't think that is out of the question. I think that can totally happen. I think Oli will be providing chances to both Dean and David De Gea, so to give them this opportunity to prove themselves as the number one. So yeah, I think we can have a rotating goalkeeping lineup this season. Yeah.
So that's it. I
Just
think from Anshumani, Wali.
yeah, one quick
Yeah,
question
Wali.
to both of you. One quick question to both of you. Rather than Van der Beek and Henderson, this one is a much bigger issue right now. Who do you think starts tomorrow at centre back, Lindelof or Bai? Paritosh, what about you?
Bye, Eric
What do you
Bye.
think?
If
Bye,
we split
bye,
Eric Bye,
bye, bye, bye,
straight out the
Bai
bye.
gate.
And
starts.
I've
Straight.
always been I've always been heavily in favor of Eric Bailly. It's just that he's not fit enough. It's just that he's consistently been injured ever since he was brought in by Mourinho. Mourinho brought him in to solve the whole centre back situation because ever since Rio Ferdinand Nemanja Vidic left, there was no particular centre back who was able to establish himself as a major centre back. We
Right.
always had this trouble. Bai was brought in because he was this strong lad who could play, who could distribute balls, who had authority, and he still has. The day he plays, he is fantastic. You can't get past him easily. So that's authority he still has. It's just that he's just made of glass. He becomes this fragile piece who gets injured every other month. So why it's disheartening because I've seen this many a times and with many players who are talented, who are very good. We saw this with Michael Owen. Michael Owen was a brilliant player as a youngster who was fantastic, and in the later half of his career, he was consistently being injured just because he was played earlier or whatever. So these injuries, they eat up careers, and we have seen this with Eric Bai. I just hope that he continues to play well and he is not getting injured time and again. But then again, it's a whole another issue, that the whole medical staff, and we talked about this earlier,
Right,
that
right,
there is some situation going on. We need to have some different prospects, and we
right,
need to have different doctors. Paul Pogba, when he was injured, he went to a second opinion, that he got another operation done. That's how he got fit. So there are lots of issues. We need to sort these out as well. And for these to get sorted out, Oli has to pressurize the club. Oli will have to handpick his management and his medical team. So it's a longer process, but I still feel that if Eric Bailly is fit, is any day better than
right,
Lindelof for Harry Maguire.
right. That's about it.
Okay, so for you, I'll ask you as well. Who do you prefer, Lindelof or Bailly?
Me? You're asking me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm preferring Bai all day, every day. I would prefer Bai over Maguire. I would prefer Bai over Lindelof. And only if he had the fitness level of Maguire. If he had that fitness level, then he would have been the best centre back in the league. I guarantee you that, because
Yeah.
Maguire features.
He
He
was
features in
fantastic.
every freaking match. He was there against Luton Town as well. There wasn't any need for him to play that match. Harry Maguire was there. You can expect him to feature in the Sunday League as well if Manchester United
Yeah.
go participate in the Sunday League. So I just hope that by he has that fitness level or even half of that, so that because he's quality, he has that pace, and he's aggressive, no nonsense defender like you once said. And let's just hope that he starts tomorrow.
Yeah, Akhil has commented and he said that Bai should be our first choice centre back. The question should be whether to start Maguire or Lindelof alongside him. Bai's pace will make Maguire look secure. The only question is his fitness. Yes, exactly.
It's
He
a
is
good point, brilliant point.
yeah, his this word is perfect, because Bai on his day and when he's fit, he's better than both of them. We can all agree on that. I think every Manchester United fan will agree with that. It's just that Maguire is so freaking fit. I'll give him props for that, because he has played every game for us, week in, week out. He has played, and the guy still stands. Even when we thought he'll be getting injured once in a previous week in the previous season, he came in the next week and he played again. So
Right.
that is a remarkable reason. We'll have to give him props on that. But if Bay is fit, Bay is our best centre
Best
back we
defender.
have. So that's it, I think, for today's podcast episode, whatever we'll call it. So,
Whatever.
and what are we
Preview,
calling it?
preview,
It's
preview.
a preview. Or is it a podcast or an episode? I think it's an episode because it's going right now only on YouTube.
It's a podcast
We'll
episode.
a
Definitely.
podcast
Yeah.
episode. So yeah, we'll be concluding it here on this point, and we hope that Manchester United finally gets some points, and we are able to make a uh, happy announcement here at One United, that Manchester United have finally secured the first points of the season. So
Yeah.
this is good night from me, Paritosh Joshi, along with Wali Siddiqui and Anshuman Joshi. Good night and sayonara. Hopefully, Manchester United do well.